Politics in Indiana usually comes in two forms, red or blue. But every so often, someone steps up and says, that menu doesn't work for my neighbors. District 13 stretches from small towns like Kentland and Otterbein down through Attica and Covington, across farms, county roads, and communities that don't get a lot of airtime at the State House. And the people here aren't asking for ideology. They're asking for roads that last, internet that works, healthcare they can reach, and schools that don't disappear. Tonight, we're talking to a candidate who isn't running as a Republican or a Democrat, but as an independent, who says the system isn't broken by accident. The question is simple. Can an independent actually deliver for a rural district like this one? Let's find out. Joining me now is Ben Davis, an independent candidate for Indiana State House District 13. Ben comes from a background in information technology and community advocacy, and he's running on the idea that working class Hoosiers, especially in rural districts, deserve representation that isn't filtered through party leadership or donor pressure. His campaign focuses on issues like rural broadband, healthcare access, public education, and economic opportunity for small towns that often feel overlooked by Indianapolis. Tonight, we're going to talk about what Ben Davis believes is broken, what he thinks can be fixed, and how he would actually do the job if he elected. Ben Davis, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Derrick. I really appreciate it.
You're a Lafayette native and career IT technologist turned political candidate. What personal experiences led you to run as an independent rather than align with a major party?
Great question. So I've never felt that either party has been interested in improving the lives of the working class and only have power for power's sake. I've never voted in a primary and I've never voted on a straight ticket. As far as the Republican Party, it's been co-opted by a cult of personality. And in my opinion, the Democratic Party isn't doing anything serious to counter it, as both are controlled by the same billionaire funders. Personally, throughout my life, I've seen life for my fellow Hoosiers get more challenging for people in my life and near to me, workers that I see in public places and things. And it's gotten crazy harder since the pandemic. So wealth is getting shifted more and more towards the ultra rich, and it's an accelerating rate. And again, over my lifetime, hasn't seemed to matter which party has been in power. Things continue to get more expensive. Wages continue to stagnate in comparison. The obscene wealth and the power that it brings, the two-party system, is intended to block the will of the majority, the working class. So I'm standing apart to do my best to make a difference for the working class while not being held accountable to those party forces, particularly the Democratic.
Your campaign website emphasizes energizing working class voters, giving them a reason to turn out. What specific policies do you think will most directly benefit working families in rural and small town District 13?
Yeah, I've got just a few here. So one, ensuring healthcare services are available and accessible. This could include expanding county health departments, enabling transportation systems and services from rural homes to healthcare facilities, and working with private healthcare systems to ensure availability in rural areas. Another is to recruit and keep quality K through 12 educators by paying them a thriving wage, which we do not, maintaining and upgrading schools and related facilities in rural areas and everywhere else, supporting independent farmers by shifting support and subsidies away from corporate mega farms, and consider cooperative or state-owned processing and distribution to combat the monopolies that they are subject to now. Funding public transportation, not only for schools and healthcare, but between population centers for shopping, entertainment, or any reason, as reliable personal transportation has become unaffordable. The average new car price back just in 2021 was $37,000. Now, for the last 2 years, it's been over $50,000. It's not even something I can readily afford. Funding small town revitalization projects, such as fixing up city centers, existing historic home improvements, and new construction to support the above improvements so more people can comfortably live there. And last one I'll mention is to support renewable energy projects for tax revenue, grid decarbonization, and improving air quality, while ensuring developers are held accountable to share their profits with locals. So, two things to kind of dovetail off there, right? Indiana has some of the worst air quality in the entire nation. We have still have a very high mix of energy produced by coal. And the other thing is that sometimes, solar, wind, and renewable energy developers, even though they're, green, they can also be greedy, right? So we have to make sure that any deals we make with local governments and local folks are equitable.
As an independent, you won't have the built in support systems of a party caucus. How will you build coalitions in the Indiana House to advance your priorities for Kentland, Attica, Covington, and the rest of the district?
So, great question. Instead of focusing on coalitions based on being on Team Red or Team Blue, I will work with my colleagues on a policy by policy basis. Many others in the House and Senate represent very rural areas as well. And as the representative that happens to be in the largest House district in the state, which District 13 is, I will lead by prioritizing policy efforts on eliminating as much human harm as possible. For one potential example here, there have been two separate attempts to bring right to repair laws to Hoosiers, once by two Republicans specifically for agricultural equipment, and then another more recently by a Democrat for general electronics. Working for a company that sells and recycles e-waste and knowing how much of that gets dumped in the global south, and also as a lifetime DIY mechanic who has only had someone else change my oil once because it was free with a lease agreement, the right to repair is near and dear to me. I can only imagine how frustrating it is to have a broken down combine in the middle of a field during harvest season while trying to get someone either on the phone or a field technician to your farm.
You are the first candidate that I have not had to prod for a right to repair issue. So I do commend you for that, for actually knowing what our farmers truly, truly want.
Yeah, and I will give account to one of the people on my team who actually brought that up to me. So I won't take credit for that myself.
Given your background in IT, how do you think technology and digital infrastructure can help bridge gaps in healthcare, education, or economic opportunity in a rural district like this one?
So I believe broadband access is a key component of human rights and equality. And I would draw on the experience of innovators like Tipmont, who have deployed fiber internet throughout their service area under budget and ahead of schedule using federal and state incentives available to them. Now, if the suggestion is substituting in-person education, healthcare, or jobs for virtual ones, my experience is that the track record for these options isn't great. These platforms tend to focus on quantity and cost over quality. So while having virtual options is great, I would not prioritize virtual options over in-person ones.
Many rural Hoosiers drive long distances for basic care. What measurable steps would you propose to improve healthcare access here, including mental health and affordability?
Yeah, so going back, just to reiterate a couple of my other points, I mentioned expanding public health departments, creating a rural public transportation system, and working with private healthcare providers where possible. In addition, I would also follow other state and local governments that have instituted non-lethal first responders who are appropriately trained for the emergency situation at hand. Furthermore, relying heavily on fire departments to respond to many emergencies is not ideal. So investing in mental health, addiction specialists, and other resources would be a policy priority. I am also exploring the concepts of creating public healthcare options, such as using the scale of the Indiana state government's public employee base as leverage to negotiate and decrease prices. So, for example, pooling all public employees, such as folks who work in K through 12 schools, colleges and universities, municipal government and staff, fire and police, and everything else, right? There's a huge economy of scale there that is potentially untapped to create some leverage with healthcare providers to provide potentially, maybe a public option in this state. I don't know. This is still something I'm looking into, but
Reliable broadband is essential for telemedicine, remote work, and education. What do you see as the state's role in ensuring fast, affordable internet for all towns in this district?
yep. So I'll reiterate, just like food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education, and transportation, internet access is a human right and it's vital for equality. Similar to prior rural broadband funding, with cooperatives like Tipmont, we need a comprehensive plan to fund broadband coverage in all areas of the state, be it wired or wireless.
Many small towns worry about school funding, teacher retention, and program cuts. If elected, how would you advocate for rural schools in state budget conversations?
So Where there are people, there need to be public services. An example, in Boswell, Indiana, a town with a population of 800 and has fluctuated between 750 and 1,000 people over the last 100 years, it's been pretty consistent as far as population. However, just in 2021, the Benton County School Board voted to close Boswell Elementary School and have students and staff start attending Prairie Crossing Elementary 10 miles away. So what this tells me is that Indiana is decreasing its support for public schools as the decision to close was primarily financial. Again, the population hasn't changed much in 100 years. I was told by a retired teacher that they had recently completed a refurbishment project on the school building, only to close it soon after due to funding shortages. If the fundamentals in the state budget can't support funding schools in rural areas or even urban areas, then the fundamentals need to be re-examined. Also, Indiana is still mostly a rural suburban state, and we are actively choosing to divest from those smaller communities instead of prioritizing people over profits. And hyperscale data centers aren't the answer. They exacerbate the problem, but that would be an aside to your question.
District 13 spans farmland and waterways that matter to residents. How do you balance environmental protection with economic and agricultural needs in your policy proposals?
So I think I mentioned earlier that Indiana has some of the worst air quality in the nation. We can kill two birds with one stone by enacting policy that accelerates the transition from fossil energy to renewables. We can increase tax revenues. We can make local landowners more profitable, and we can cut off massive pollution from coal and fossil gas plants by employing wind, solar, and energy storage. There's a track record already of wind and solar in District 13, and we need to build on that. And we also need to ensure that renewable energy developers cannot exploit our smaller rural communities. Creating broad statewide standards to ensure developers can't take advantage of local community leaders that aren't always as knowledgeable on large-scale energy projects would be a policy I would pursue.
As an independent representing a geographically wide district, how will you ensure residents in every town from Covington to Kentland feel heard and represented between elections?
So one thing that I'm good at is that I show up. So from county fairs to town halls, from local celebrations to city and county council meetings, from school events and even individual homes if they'll have me, I plan to be available and visible as humanly possible as I can. So I've been involved in a lot of different organizations over the past several years. So I'm coming up on 18 years of donating platelets every 2 weeks. I started that in 2008. I've been on the board of Gender Nexus for the past 3 years, traveling to Indianapolis to be on to attend those board meetings. A lot of different organizations that I'm a member of and an advocate for. I show up. My wife would tell you that I'm kind of a chronic volunteer. And now that my kids are now adults, I have a lot more time available to do things that I care about, right? So if you look at my schedule, there's maybe 2 nights a week that I don't do something else outside to try to make some change in the world. So I'm someone who shows up. So I would be more afraid of people in District 13 getting sick of seeing me than not feeling heard. That's my intention. And I want to say that includes now. So if there's anybody in District 13 who wants to talk to me or quiz me on anything, feel free to reach out to me at ben@bendavisforindiana.com, and I'll find some time for you. I'll come out to you and happy to have a chat and learn from you.
All right, Ben, we've talked about priorities, policy, and how you'd approach the job. Now we're going to shift gears. This is the hold 'em or fold 'em round. I'll give you a statement. You tell me yes or no, hold it or fold it. No filibusters, no asking campaign managers, just a simple hold 'em or fold 'em. Are you ready?
All right, let's do it.
The state of Indiana should increase funding for rural broadband expansion.
Hold it.
Indiana should step in to prevent rural hospitals from closing, even when private systems pull out.
Hold it.
Indiana's school funding formula should be changed to better support small and rural school districts.
Hold it.
Every bill introduced at the State House should come with a plain English explanation that a high school senior could understand.
Hold it.
Local governments should have final authority over zoning and land use decisions.
Hold it. Local, yes.
Indiana should expand property tax relief for homeowners and farmers.
Hold it.
Rural mental health services should receive increased and dedicated state funding.
Hold it.
Corporate tax abatements and incentives should require greater transparency and public reporting.
Hold it.
Pineapple belongs on pizza.
Fold it.
State budget should prioritize rural infrastructure over new corporate tax incentives.
Okay.
Ben, thank you for being here and stepping into this process. Running as an independent isn't the easy road. It means no party machinery, no built in safety net, and no one doing the talking for you. What it does mean is putting your ideas, your values, and your record directly in front of the voters and trusting them to decide. District 13 stretches across small towns, farmland, and communities that don't fit neatly into talking points or party boxes. And democracy works best when voters aren't told they only get two options and should be grateful for it. Whether people agree with you or not, showing up, answering tough questions, and offering voters a real choice matters. Democracy deserves competition, it deserves accountability, and it deserves more than a binary menu. So, Ben, thank you for adding another voice to the ballot and another perspective to this conversation. To everyone listening, remember the decisions made in Indianapolis start with the people we choose right here at home. So stay informed, ask questions, and as always, hold them accountable.